all the way down, all the way from the IFC via Senegal, we have the beautiful, the wonderful Esther Desado. Did I butcher that? Awesome. Excellent. All right. Next to me from BNP is Karen Mahoney. Thank you, Karen. You can applaud. Susan McPherson, my gal pal. She lives right near me in Brooklyn. Woo! And finally, Radha. Radha, how do I say your last name? Muthiah. I'm so glad she said it. All right, great. So we're here to talk about sustainability, ladies. And to do that, we have to define sustainability, and it's challenging, Susan. Tell me why.
Because
you have to use your microphone.
I was just going to talk into my water. I don't know if that would do quite well. Sustainability has many, many different connotations depending on who you ask. You will hear people call it corporate social responsibility, hear it called the triple bottom line, we hear it called people, planet, profit. The way I define it is doing the right thing and doing good business. But why don't we all agree that we know that in different countries and different cultures, it's going to be perceived differently, and just to agree on that?
Okay,
Sound
so
good?
in the U.S., how would you define sustainability?
It is, if you are a corporate entity or an organization, it is being mindful of everything that you put out to the world is as good as it can possibly be. And that is that's a really rudimentary description. From a corporate standpoint, it is making sure that you are not taking more than you're giving back.
Got it. Radha, would you agree with that? How would you define it in the developing world?
Sure, yeah, no, I'm happy you asked that.
It's going to be very different.
Sustainability from a developing country perspective, I think, is a little bit different. I work in the area of clean cookstoves and empowering women through having access to cleaner and more efficient sources of fuel. There's a lot of grant money that comes into supporting that, whether it's from corporations, bilaterals, or foundations. So sustainability there is ensuring that the aid that's provided in support actually can catalyze those organizations and enterprises so that they eventually function independently and by themselves without the support of that, without the initial support of aid. The second way I'd look at that is we're trying to enhance development in many countries, but you don't want to do it at the expense of the environment.
Yeah.
So the sustainability there ensures that you're supporting positive progress of households, women, families, without harming the environment.
Yeah. And in your case, too, specifically making sure you're bringing on locals to be handling
Absolutely. It's
projects.
Capacity building and ensuring that it isn't just exporting materials into a certain situation, bringing expertise from the outside. Again, initially, a lot of that is critical to get things moving. But after that, ensuring that you have sufficient local capacity to be able to take things forward.
Fabulous. Now, I did not plan this, but the women who work in finance are on this side of the panel. And I think for you, defining sustainability might be a little different. Do one of you want to tackle that?
Sure. So I think for us, definitely, it's not only looking at it from a developmental angle, but making sure that the financial institutions that we're working with have the ability to do so in a profitable manner. Because if it's not profitable for them, then why should they do it? And in addition to that, how long will they do it if it's not profitable? Because every time you have, for example, an institution like the World Bank, the UN, the IFC, and so on and so forth come in, of course, people run because they think it's a grant. But what happens after those institutions have left is where you really see whether, if you will, what we've done is sustainable or not.
And I agree on the profitability point that you make, Esther, but I also think if you look at it even internal to the corporate organization, sustainability has a lot to do with employee engagement within the corporation itself and making sure that the employees are engaged and happy and doing what they need to do so that the company can, exercise its business properly.
Great. And then I know the panel itself we're not just talking about sustainability, mind you. We are talking about gender equality and health too. And Susan, you had a really good point when we talked about this prior about defining health and what's norm in cultures and what's not in other cultures. And you talked about Egypt.
Yeah. Well, there was just a statistic I had seen that morning that 91% of girls in Egypt will be genitally cut. And in our country, in the U.S., I should define that would not be the norm, correct? I mean, we do know there's cases here, which is, in my view, horrific, and I'm sure in many other women and men in the audience. But for us to be putting our views on another country when we don't live there, it's a dangerous path to take. So that is why I brought that up, because you have to be mindful of that if you're talking to other cultures about their habits.
Esther, how would you say that the definition of a successful company has changed in your sphere? How do we know that you are successful and sustainable and pushing the agenda on gender equality and on health-related issues?
So for us, success, if you will, is two ways, right? So it's making sure that not only you have a product that's out there that you can sell, but that it is also being taken up by everybody within the population. And in a way, that's how IFC started its work. So when we would look at our portfolio and notice that 50% of the population in most countries that we were working in were not accessing funding, and here I'm talking specifically about women, we said, but there's a problem. And so what did we need to do in order for our clients, who are for the most part financial institutions, to see that not only as a do-good type of thing, but as something that hits their business directly? Because I don't know for people who are in the room who are business owners, but I don't think that...
Let's ask, how many women in this room are business owners? If you are, raise your hand.
Interesting.
It's about half.
It's about half. And so how many of you would actually close the door on an opportunity to make more money? Nobody. Right?
Wait a second, let me ask. Raise your hand. Would you close the door on an opportunity to make more money? Anyone out there? No.
Precisely. Therefore, why?
You would? I would if the people were really annoying and I didn't want to work with them.
Right, but if you knew that there was a great opportunity to make significant profit, why would you close your eyes on 50% of the population?
Right.
You wouldn't. And so proving that to the clients that we were working with, and therefore positioning women as that type of segment that can take your business to a much higher level than it is at now, is what we wanted to see. And in a way, this is how we've actually changed the definition of a successful company. It's not just that you're doing good and making some profit, but that you're making much more profit by targeting the one segment of the population that we know technically makes all the decisions. No offense to the guys in the room.
Radha, tell me how you define success.
Sure. So I speak on behalf of the Global Alliance for Clean Cookstoves, but I can also speak on behalf of women entrepreneurs who are within the space. So our larger mandate as an alliance is to ensure that those who need cleaner cooking solutions, fuels and stoves and heat retention devices, have access to it. But we are taking a market-based approach to achieving that. So that means that our goals are reliant upon entrepreneurs within the sector producing and scaling up and ensuring availability of these stoves and fuels. We have seen from a consumer perspective, in terms of those who buy these stoves, they are much more interested in actually purchasing stoves when there's been much more input from women in terms of the design, when women are involved in the marketing, and in particular when women are involved in the after-sales service. They believe these women will be around in their communities, they can go to them for support. So success for many companies within our sector actually hinges on not just selling a product to women, but ensuring a lot of input all the way through the supply chain by women. Because ultimately, you're going to buy a product that's useful to you. And if you or someone like you has provided some input into that, then chances are much higher that you're going to buy it, adopt it, and then achieve all of the health benefits, environmental benefits, et cetera, that we see. So we've seen quite clearly that success hinges on having women's input throughout the value chain. Now, to pick up on what my colleague at the IFC was saying, many women entrepreneurs, though, don't have that as equal access to finance as many male entrepreneurs do, for a variety of reasons in the developing world. And so, it's true, it's the same in the developed world. Probably the variance is a little bit greater, but again, that probably varies from country to country. But the issue there is that there isn't enough capacity building that is specifically focused on supporting women entrepreneurs. There are different challenges that women entrepreneurs in the developing world face. So for example, in our sector, but I can't imagine it's different from others, we therefore provide a little bit of that bridge through women's empowerment funds that specifically help build women-owned entrepreneurs, their businesses, to the point where they become more investment ready, to the point where they can qualify for loans and other products that the IFC or its clients, local national banks, would be providing to many of these smaller businesses as well.
And to actually, I'd like to add to that because, to your point about providing financing, BNP Paribas has granted over 87 million euros in 2013 in credit facilities.
I won't ask you to convert that to
provide. It's over 100 million US, right? They've granted that much in credit facilities to microfinance loans, to give loans to entrepreneurs, and 75% of those loans were given to women. So, I think it's about a successful company is also about what kind of a positive impact, especially I think for a corporate organization, what kind of a positive impact you can have, on society. And so we really strive and are committed to doing that.
And Radha, just to give you a shout out, because I know you're celebrating a big milestone this week.
That's right. Yeah, no, our goal is to have 100 million households adopt clean cooking solutions by 2020. And tomorrow and day after, we're celebrating with Hillary Clinton, who's our board chair, the achievement of the first phase. So we're over 20 million households in just 3 years that have now adopted cleaner cooking solutions.
Okay, that deserves a round of applause. So, how would you say that CSR impacts your business, Esther? You have some good examples.
So interestingly enough, I think...
Wait, Susan wants to define CSR first. It's not nice to talk in acronyms without defining them.
No, but if you... Oh, hi. you are interchanging sustainability and CSR, and I think for a lot of people who don't work in this space, they may not know. And it stands for corporate social responsibility. That's all.
Thank you.
Sorry, to be the obnoxious panelist here.
I like obnoxious. Go ahead.
Thanks, Susan. So interestingly enough, IFC approaches the issue of CSR differently. I think CSR, based on how we've seen it, has had some impact. However, what we found is that unless, again, we could really prove the business case as to why financial institutions or corporations needed to target women enterprises, CSR was not going to get us to the type of impact that we needed to have. So, we had given a lot of grants, and the World Bank as well, and so on and so forth. However, in terms of seeing the number of women enterprises, and specifically women-owned SMEs, who were accessing loans and being able to grow their businesses, those numbers were very small. We work with financial institutions basically in most of the developing world, and at the beginning of the program that we now call Banking on Women, banks, for the most part, in their portfolio had anywhere between 1% to 10% being the best bank that we've ever seen, and there was only one that had that percentage of women entrepreneurs in their portfolios taking loans.
Can you name that one?
Unfortunately, I can't.
Just like a journalist, I had to ask that
Just so you know, there was that one. And when you would ask them, but wait a minute, why aren't you banking women entrepreneurs? They would say, but we don't discriminate. Women are welcome here. But women are welcome here, and what's going on in your portfolio is totally different. Now, if you ask women why they weren't going to the banks, they would say, well, banks don't particularly understand the type of business that we run. They ask us for collateral, things that we don't have. The interest rates are too high. We spoke about capacity building. Yeah, we don't really, understand. Some of them didn't even know that they could negotiate the rates, the interest rates on their loans and things of that sort. So the gap was too wide. And so in order for us to make the impact and to push banks to take a stand, it was important to show that there was a huge market that they were missing out on. So we embarked on, doing a piece of research, which we did with McKinsey, and found out that in the developing world, there are about 8 to 10 million women-owned SMEs, formal, by the way, not informal. If you add the informal, it just literally increases drastically. Now, those 8 to 10 million women-owned SMEs today have a financing need of close to $320 billion. Now, that made banks react. and they started asking questions. So what is it that we're not doing to make sure that women are coming in to the bank? What do we need to do as a financial sector to get a bit more involved and start understanding the women entrepreneurs who actually are slightly different than their male counterparts? Now that started leading to other companies within the financial sectors, including insurance companies, now also asking the same questions. So for us, I think CSR, if you will, opened the door, but it's not enough to really get companies and financial institutions or corporations, for that matter, to act.
There's a great study that Sylvia Ann Hewitt did called The Power of the Purse, which expressly looks at the study, or a study similar to what Esther just quoted. And the overwhelming majority of wealth managers in this country are male. And when women are going to do their banking, studies show they're more comfortable if whoever is selling to them understands what challenges they face. And banks have been woefully behind, and we're about to reach a time where there's going to be a massive transfer of wealth to women, and banks now are just realizing they need to catch up and address exactly what you just said. But it's the Center for Talent Innovation and Power of the Purse, if you want to see the study.
Karen, tell me how you measure impact.
So for us, we measure impact of CSR, I think in several different ways. I mean, first, corporate social responsibility now it's expected by an organization. It's not a nice to have or something that you maybe want to do. It's expected for an organization to be socially responsible, and the millennials that are coming into the workforce actually expect that as well. So we measure this by the type of hiring that we have to do, and because it's very important from the millennials that we have a corporate social responsibility program. We also measure that internally with our employees in terms of, because we have a lot of internal CSR events that we do for employee engagement. It's very important for a corporate organization. And so we do this through annual global people surveys, measuring from our staff.
Fill out your surveys, people.
It's very important for us to have those, especially in human resources. But we measure the impact that we have in CSR by those surveys as well.
Great. And then the other impact, Esther, briefly, is?
So for us, impact is, if you will, threefold. So first, we need to understand how many of the women that we're targeting are accessing loans, because we're in the business of providing and investing money. So how many are accessing loans? So that's the first step. The second step is, what is the replication effect? So once we've done this with 1-2 banks, who are the other financial institutions that are picking up on this and trying to do the same thing, be it better than the bank that we've worked with? That's great, but nonetheless trying to do the same thing. The third, and for us that's where the greatest impact really is when you now have other institutions, including governmental institutions, taking on a task and understanding that, increasing women's empowerment, making sure that women have access to loans is also taken into account, and reforming their laws in order to make that happen.
And that happened in?
So we've had, if you will, the first country that we really tried this with was in Nigeria. And today, for example, the Minister of Finance has taken on women's access to finance as a key agenda in the work that she does. And so she's enabled, basically, if you will, the central bank governors to even be engaged, to ask that more women be not only on, be taken as clients, but also be part of, the bank's boards, for example, which 5 years ago, that would have never been the case.
Great.
And I think if I can just add
Yeah,
one
I
thing
wanted
there
you to.
on impact, there are a couple of ways. There's also, when you look at smaller enterprises, especially in the developing world, it's not the larger financial institutions that are directly supporting them or providing loans, et cetera. It's much more impact investors at this stage. And the issue there for them is how should they measure impact? What are the indicators that are to be used? So it's wonderful for us all to say, well, invest in a company that empowers women. How do you track that? How do you know that? How do you distinguish between different companies? So one thing we've seen is it's very important to develop those indicators so that those investors can in turn go to those who are providing them with some of the capital to say, you wanted us to invest in companies that empower women. These are the 3 indicators that we're tracking. You know, for example, how much time
I was gonna say,
a
can
woman
you
now
break it
has
down?
available
Okay.
for productive labor, for example. How much time, you know, does she have more time to go to school? Are her kids, are her girls actually in school at a higher grade level than they were prior to whatever intervention, you know, this particular organization is offering? So there are many, many more, but I think, you know, even 5 years ago, those weren't clearly defined. The vision was there, but how to measure it was not defined. And if you don't have those measures, it's very hard to have, you know, capital follow, whether it's corporate social responsibility funds or actual capital for which there's going to be a return on that investment. So I think really getting down to the granularity of, you know, helping entrepreneurs build their capacity, become more investment ready, but on the flip side, helping investors understand what to look for, how to measure, and to do it in an objective way is really critical. So one institute that does that really well is the Global Impact Investing Network. The GIN develops all of these indicators that can be cross-referenced from industry to industry, and so that would be a good place, I think, to start as well.
I was on the board for years of an NGO called BPeace, Business Council for Peace, and we helped women entrepreneurs in regions of post-conflict. Our major metric that we religiously scoured and tracked was the creation of jobs. And if we were going to be helping these women, and now to a certain extent men in these countries, build their businesses, we needed to be asking the same questions that Radha just cited. And the job creation, once you have jobs created, it leads to so much other good, the children in school, et cetera.